Picture a normal evening in St. Petersburg. The city's winding down for the night. But then, on Peterhof Highway, that quiet is shattered by sirens. We're going to get into exactly what happened, piece by piece.
It was the evening of April 4th. In a high-rise building, an apartment catches fire. A simple, terrifying event that kicked off a serious emergency response.
So first, let's just get into the hard facts. What do the official reports from the emergency services tell us about the fire itself? Okay, so the first call hits the emergency line at 8:38 p.m. Now look at this. By 9:05 p.m., the fire was totally out. That's just 27 minutes from the first call to done. I mean, that is an incredibly fast response. A real credit to the firefighters. And when you look at the scale, the fire itself was actually pretty small. It was contained to about 10 square meters inside a 3-room apartment. But it still drew a major response, right? 15 personnel, 3 different units. So you have to ask, why such a big turnout for a small fire? Well, there was a very, very important reason.
Yeah, because this wasn't just about a fire in some empty apartment. The real story, the part that makes this whole thing so much more urgent, is about who was actually inside at the time. 3. That's the number at the absolute center of this story. 3 children were inside that apartment when the fire broke out, and all 3 of them had to be taken to the hospital.
So who are we talking about? We're talking about very young kids. A brother and sister born in 2015, so they're about 8 years old, and their older cousin who was born in 2013. But here's an incredible detail. They actually managed to get out of that apartment all on their own.
Thankfully, the news from the hospital was a huge relief. They were treated for some light carbon monoxide poisoning and were kept for observation. But the key thing is, none of them had any serious burns. A really close call for sure, but it could have been so much worse.
So with the kids safe, the big question became, what caused this? And this is where the story gets really complicated, because in those first few hours, the reports were all over the place. It's the central mystery, isn't it? How does a fire just start in an apartment with 3 kids inside? In the immediate aftermath, the media was just flooded with different stories. On one hand, you had a theory that the children were playing with something flammable, like lighter fluid, a tragic accident. But then a totally different story popped up, that the kids heard a wire crackling right before the fire, which points to faulty wiring. 2 completely different scenarios. It's a perfect example of that early chaos you get with breaking news. And as if that wasn't confusing enough, some news outlets started reporting that neighbors heard a loud explosion just before they saw smoke. So what was it? Kids playing, bad wiring, or something else entirely? The picture was just getting muddier by the minute. But then, in the middle of all this confusion, the Investigative Committee of Russia steps in to begin their official inquiry. And this is where the fog finally starts to lift. And this statement, this is what changes everything. According to their preliminary findings, the cause of the fire was the careless handling by children of a tourist gas cylinder. That one sentence just cuts right through all the speculation. So this theory, an accident with a camping gas canister, that became the main focus of the investigation. It suddenly connects the kids' playing story with those reports of an explosion. And it came with another absolutely critical detail. The children had apparently been left home alone, without any adult supervision. But the story isn't over yet. I mean, a preliminary statement is one thing, but now a formal process has to kick in to figure out exactly what happened and who, if anyone, is responsible. The investigators have a really clear 3-step mission here. First, establish all the facts, every last detail about how and why this fire started. Second, they have to make a legal judgment on the actions of the adults who were supposed to be looking after these kids. And third, the whole investigation is being monitored by the prosecutor's office to make sure it's all done by the book. So, was this a terrible, tragic accident, or was it a case of negligence? That's what the investigation will decide. But this whole incident, all stemming from one little gas canister, it leaves us with a much bigger question to think about. How can we do a better job of protecting kids from the kinds of hidden dangers that might just be sitting in plain sight right inside our own homes? It's a question that's worth asking long after the smoke has cleared.